Welcome to another broadcast of Truth Be Told, where we believe in experience becomes truth. I'm your host, Tony Sweet, and joining me in studio, your other host, Captain Ron. Well, today we have a very special guest and a very special show. For you UFO enthusiasts like myself, yes, we have an investigative reporter in the field of extraterrestrial research. She is a widely published freelance writer, especially in Europe. She has studied extraterrestrial-related phenomena since 1979 and rubs elbows with some of the top UFO experts in the world. Yes, we have the one and only Paola Harris today on Truth Be Told. From 1980 to 1986, she assisted Dr. J. Allen Hynek with his UFO investigations and has interviewed many top military witnesses concerning their involvement in the government truth embargo. In 1997, Miss Harris met and interviewed Colonel Philip Corso in Roswell, New Mexico, and became a personal friend and confidant. And in 2003, she returned to Roswell for the American debut of her newly revised book, Connecting the Dots, Making Sense of the UFO Phenomena. Today we're going to be talking about one of her newest books. It was released in October of last year. It's called UFOs, All the Above and Beyond. It expands on some of the original interviews and essays in All the Above. We're excited to have her with the Truth Be Told today, so please help us welcome Paola Harris to Truth Be Told. Welcome, Paola. Welcome to Truth Be Told. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, listen, Ron and I, Captain Ron and I, we get really excited when we have someone like yourself because
absolutely.
We were talking a couple weeks ago about when we have somebody that actually interviews someone that had an encounter such as Roswell, it gets us excited because a lot of people, they want to talk on the UFO subject and they've never seen a UFO. They've just done research, but you've got to actually talk to people all over the world that have had encounters. So this is what gets us excited and going.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Of course. Okay, so I just want to know a little bit about your background, and then we'll kind of dive into your latest book. But now, have you, such as Linda Moulton-Howe, like you said you're a friend of hers, but did you also have an encounter at any point in your life?
No. You need to know a little bit about my background because back in 1980, I saw the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I have a master's in education. I was teaching science fiction in a high school because I've been teaching high school English for 30 years. So what happened was that there was something in that film that I reacted to, and I, at the end of the film when Francois Truffaut had the encounter with the ETs, I began to cry. I had an emotional reaction to it. So I decided to look at the background of that film. And I ended up in Evanston, Illinois at the Center for UFO Studies, which was CUFOS, and it was run by Dr. J. Allen Hynek.
Right.
And as you know, he's the godfather of ufology.
Right.
And I never thought he was there. And I walked in, and I was going to offer my services to help and volunteer, and he came from around the corner with this pipe, that famous pipe that he has in the film. Yeah, and he said to me, my secretary says you speak Italian. And I said, yes, I am from Italy. I was born there. My dad was the Italian consul for the state of Rhode Island. I'm a teacher. And he goes, I want you to work with me. So I worked with him for 6 years.
Wow,
so my background
awesome.
is unlike a lot of people's. When you work with the godfather of ufology,
right.
You don't even ask if it's real.
Right.
You don't. It's not a belief system. He was hired by the Air Force, so I worked with him until he died, and I suffered a lot. He died of a brain tumor in 1986.
Wow, and that was a loss.
So I became, what he did, and we can go into this in another interview, is he sent me, like, the sightings at that time. We're talking 1980s, and I was putting pins on a map. He'd call and say, there's a flap here, and I was putting pins on a map. And he also sent me files that I had to go over. And then he also came to visit me in Colorado, and I would drive him around, and I spent a lot of time with him. So I knew where this man was coming from. He was my greatest teacher. And you were talking about Roswell, that I think Captain Ron is interested in Roswell. Well,
oh, boy.
I went to live in Italy for 15 years. And in 1997 was the 50th anniversary of Roswell. It's all in my book, Connecting the Dots. And my office in Italy, I was writing for a magazine, Area 51 magazine in Italy. They said, you go cover the this 50th anniversary, and I said I don't want to because I had to fly across the ocean. It was my vacation, and
Right.
and I did end up in Roswell, and they said we want you to interview Colonel Philip Corso
Wow.
from the book The Day After Roswell. Well, I had no reservations for any hotel, and all hotels were booked. I didn't have any preparation. I didn't even know what he looked like. And I got to Roswell, went to the media center, and they said, well, just pick a hotel. And I just called the first hotel, and sure enough, there was a room, and it was a room next to Philip Corso.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, yes, you can imagine. You can figure this out, right? My whole life is
Fantastic.
guided.
The serendipity
Yeah,
sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's right next to the Colonel. I didn't know that. I end up in the Roswell Museum. He's giving a lecture, and this blonde guy says, you're from Italy. Why don't you ask my father a question in Italian? And I said, your father speaks Italian? He says, yeah, he was the head of intelligence in Italy when he was 26 years old. So I raised my hand, and I asked him about the Santilli footage. I don't know if you know about the alien autopsy movie. Did you ever hear of it?
I don't think I have. Have you heard it?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah, well, I asked him about that in Italian, and he said, he said, in my nut file, what he called a nut file, which was given to him by General Trudeau, he said, there was, he said, a lens, he said, that, was over the being's eye, because we always think that's their eyes, but it's a lens, and he said that was a light collector, he said, and we peeled it off, just like in the movie, and he said we developed the Army. Now we're talking about the Army, not the Air Force, because they started way before. The Army developed night screening devices, so out of that. So consequently, I was living in Italy, so Colonel Corso came to Italy 3 times. I was able to spend a great deal of time with him, and we translated The Dawn of a New Age, not Bill Burns' book, but A Dawn of a New Age. I wrote the preface for it in Italy, and I'm about to release a book on Colonel Corso on April 1st. It's called Conversations with Colonel Corso. So, when I'm dealing with, the head of R&D in the Pentagon, and I'm dealing with Alan Hynek, and the third person I want to mention is Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister of Canada. I have 6 interviews on YouTube with him. I flew up to Canada because, he made it real. He made it credible. Nobody was laughing when he said UFOs are as real as the airplanes over our head. That's his quote. So just to tell you, I started out nuts and bolts. And my current work, which is in 2016 and 17 now, is in Latin America, looking at contact with Latin American contactees. So I've gone full circle. I've probably interviewed everybody from Al Bielek to Dan Bursch, everybody. Clifford Stone. I mean, I've interviewed physically everybody, not on the phone. I've had to fly to see them because Alan taught me, Alan Hynek, that you have to look at people when they're talking, to look at their body language to see if they're telling the truth. So that's my background a little bit. I had 5 books, and they're all interviews.
Right there, what you're talking about, Paul. I'd love to ask you this question. Let me just set this up for a quick second. You were just mentioning you were in Roswell. You were at the museum. First time I went to the museum in Roswell, I just was fortunate enough to walk in, and Don Schmidt was walking out, the guy that wrote the Roswell book that's kind of the definitive guide. You know Don Schmidt, I'm sure, who that is, right?
He worked with Alan Hynek. He was part of CUFO, so
right.
I knew him then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, so I had a really just a wonderful opportunity to spend. I probably spent a half an hour talking with him. We just hit it off, and we had a really great conversation. And so what I asked him was, man to man, not when you see these guys at the conferences or giving speeches or on YouTube or whatever, that's one thing. It's another thing when you talk man to man, eye to eye, in a parking lot. So I said to him, look, when you were interviewing these people, tell me, did you feel that they were being honest with you or whatever? And he grabbed my arm and looked me man to man, eye to eye, and said, look, I'm telling you, when you have a connection with somebody, you can feel that they're being sincere. He says, I believe it. He says, everything I put in here, I believe that these people believe. I didn't feel anybody was being shady at all. So what I'd like to know, and obviously Corso is a very controversial man. You've got the great opportunity to speak with him that intimately. What did you feel? Did you feel he was sincere? Did you feel maybe not so much? Or how did you feel about him in person? Because it's much different being in person than hearing someone speak.
Yeah. Well, the only way that you could do that, first of all, is to look at the background. So we in Italy started looking at his background. We got all his military records. We looked at his background in Italy. Everything he said was true. And when he came over, first of all, you have to look at his intention. I think there was a lot of jealousy. I'm going to be honest with you. This field, and this is going to sound negative, is basically commercial. It's cottage industry where everybody wants to make money.
Right.
And they thought Colonel Corso was he didn't make a cent when he died. After he died, there was a whole other thing. But he was alive for 2 years. Here in America, he was shut down because there was a lawsuit, and he couldn't speak. So that's a good way to shut down people. When I asked him why he was at 82, he came out with this. He said, well, that General Trudeau said that in R&D, research and development, the last one of us that's alive has to tell the truth. And he also said, I'm doing it because of my 3 grandsons. And they were really little then, and part of the deal to bring Colonel Corso in Italy was to bring the 3 grandchildren. So we had them with us in Italy. Because he is Sicilian. I mean, my God, the guy, and when he talks about he did the Korean War, he did World War II, he was, head of a missile battalion in White Sands. I mean, he carried a stiletto in his boot. This is not somebody that, this is like a Sicilian. So, and by the way, when he was in Italy, a whole bunch of people from Sicily came up to greet him that he had helped during World War II. Everything he says, he wrote another book called The Man That Saved Rome. His interactions with the Pope, with saving a whole boatload of Jews, and all of that is true. We absolutely, I even dragged him down to a bar in Rome where he said there was a white piano and a singer that would sing at night, and it was where all the servicemen would go. Well, today it's just a coffee bar. So when I went there and I said, was this a restaurant? Were servicemen here during World War II? They made me go down 3 floors underground. And there was all the pictures of the servicemen. There was the white piano, everything he said. I even walked into where he was housed, and he told me where the elevator was. Everything he said is true, okay, because I dragged him all over. I liked his stories because he was remembering. He wasn't making anything up. So if you were with him, he'd talk to you. And you have to really do your background. And I'm going to say another thing that's going to sound negative. Nobody reads anybody else's books, so they would not know about anything else, about anybody else, or any of the work we did. But Colonel Corso was the youngest head of the CIC before the CIA in Rome. We could check all that. It was easy. And the reason why he was telling what he was telling about the back engineering, and he was only talking about the Army, because the arguments people use, well, it was, transistors were in the already in the public domain. Oh, of course they were. Because if you have, and I've just researched a crash in 1945 in San Antonio, New Mexico. It's taken me 5 years to research it. You have the Army, Air Force, they're going to break off. The Air Force is going to walk off with stuff they're not going to throw in the trash, and they're already going to start working on it. And by the time Corso came along, it was 1960. So you think there between 1947, if you want to go to Roswell, 1960, it isn't going to go into the public domain. So what the problem is this, that when you're competing, all the Roswell books against a Roswell book, or when people are competing for conferences, or when there's a commercial aspect to this, it's not like an academic subject where they say, hey, let's go into a room, all the anthropologists, and talk about, our history or gorillas or whatever you're studying in anthropology. they're more competitive against each other, and nobody cares what everybody else did. I really have to tell you that I thank you for mentioning Don Schmidt. He is my host at Laughlin this year, November 10th to 12th. I've known him forever. He knows who he was talking to. He respects the witnesses. That's the way work should be done.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
And that's what I do. I mean, I have no opinion of my own because I've got to listen to what people say. And, he really deserves, he and Tom deserve credit for what they do. And Colonel Corso, because it was so controversial, and you've got to understand, it changed my whole life, because I always thought that the reason why the secret was being kept secret was because people were afraid of aliens or it would be the end of religion. No, the secret is secret because of the free energy, all the toys that we back in
money. We never have that come up on the show, do we, Tony? That money seems to be the source of that.
But let me. Can I ask you this question? And I don't know if you heard of the documentary "Stranger at the Pentagon"?
Oh yeah.
What do you think about that? Because I've had him on, and I mean, but one thing that he
I don't want to talk. Let's put it this way. I really admire Craig. I love him. Right. I did his red carpet event, but I don't believe that the only part of that movie that disturbs me a little bit, first of all, I do believe there was a Valthor, because what happened was that I came into possession of about 25 photos on the farm of Howard Menger in New Jersey. And they came from the Wendell Stevens archive. And I don't know, for me, Wendell Stevens, and I knew him well, and Helen Hynek were the best ufologists ever. I mean, they the best researchers in the world. And I have an audio tape of August Roberts, who was the photographer of those days. But you have to know this history. And he's talking to Wendell, and he's saying, Wendell, Howard Menger told me there were going to be 3 extraterrestrials sitting in his orchard. There's about 100 people in his orchard. And he said, he's not going to tell me who they are. I have to walk around, and I have to look for them. Well, if you see the photos I have, and I'd be glad to forward them to you, at least 5 or 6 of them, you see everybody dressed casual, but then you see Val with Jill and his brother sitting there, and they're very overdressed. Very. And not only that, but they have perfect features.
Right.
And so the thing is that when I heard the tape, the audio tape, because that was part of what was given to me, and I heard August Roberts, who took those pictures, say those were the 3 because they knew I was there and they were watching me and so forth, and I do believe the story. However, I'm not sure that the movie goes with the story, but the story is real.
Well, what stood out to me, a couple of little scenes when the Thor, I believe his name was, presented to the President of the United States at the time the cures for all diseases, the cure for climate, the disasters that were causing our planet, all these things, and their reaction was like, no, we don't want that. We want your technology. And
no,
can't make any money on the other
happened.
stuff.
Go ahead.
No, actually, if you study Stranges, and
right.
Frank Stranges was the man behind this, what happened, and if you read Howard Menger's book, I did all this research because, and I'll tell you why I did it. It's because I was trying to get away from the stereotypical abduction, little gray alien running around cartoon thing.
Right.
So I realized that years ago in Giant Rock, under Adamski and Van Tassel and those guys, and I had to go back there physically to talk to the people, that human-type aliens were coming off ships and talking to the people. I don't know if you know, but the Integratron was funded by Howard Hughes.
Right.
So
I did know that.
Yeah, so in California in the 50s and 60s, all of this was going on, and Howard Menger, and if people want to read a book, From Outer Space to You is amazing, was in New Jersey, and his last 3 chapters is how you can live longer, because those beings, and they said they came from Venus, said that you had to keep your blood alkaline, which means lemon water. And they didn't understand because of the way we ate and how we lived. We didn't live long. So when Balfour went to tell Eisenhower, he said, look, you people, you're not living correctly. You don't have to take all these pharmaceuticals. One of the things that Eisenhower and Nixon said is that's part of our economy.
Right.
And the pharmaceutical industry is major, big time. And of course, if people live longer, then you have an in their brain.
Right.
You have an overpopulation problem.
True.
So the thing is that not only had he given advice to the government, the people that went along with, and I've seen photos of them too, with Adamski also tried, and Adamski did have Kennedy's ear. He did.
Really?
One of the people you should interview is Glenn Steckling.
Glenn, I had to look that one up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he was 9 years old when Adamski left all the materials to his father, Fred Steckling, and when I was interviewing him, I had to interview all those people. I had to go back to the 50s and 60s to get the real story.
Right.
What happened, and I'll be honest with you, what happened is the government's really happy with our fear-based little alien abduction scenario. They know we're not going to go any farther than that, and everybody's going to becomes entertainment. It becomes, all kinds of stuff. So they go, they're going to stay there. They're not going to go look at all the people from other planets that came here. And because I was in Italy in 1950, we had Eugenio Siracusa that met the same people Adamski made. And Eugenio was on the island of Sicily. So I was able to interview him. And all the people that saw the aliens, and they're not Nordic, they had blonde hair, but some of them had brown eyes, that were talking to Siracusa. So there was a push in the 50s to say mostly, look, you're playing with fire because you've discovered bombs, nuclear. It's going to pollute the entire planet, and it's going to affect us.
Wow. And, well, in your years of research, and you've interviewed a lot of people, was there one in particular that really stood out that just, I know every story probably adds to your collection of just being, fascinated with what they're saying, but was there ever one person that gave you so much knowledge in one interview that you just really couldn't hardly believe that this was actually true or you know what I'm saying? It's just because, like, us talking to you, but there has to have been somebody that really just stood out over the years that just blew your mind away, I guess.
Well, I did interview, it was very close. I even went to his funeral with Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut. I was invited to his funeral. In fact, I didn't see anybody I knew there, so I know it was one of the only people. And the other one was Clark McClellan, who did a lot of the Apollo missions. And there's a lot about NASA that's interesting, and I'm not going to go into detail.
Right.
But what are you interested in that you would like to ask me about? Because I've done so much work.
I know what I'd like to ask you. I would like to ask you about John Mack, because I think he was one of the greatest. This is the biggest tragedy in this field, right?
Well, when I was living in Italy, and I was teaching at the American Overseas School of Rome, and my salary was such that I could bring Linda Howe. I brought Linda Howe, Travis Walton. I brought everybody over, Richard Dolan. I brought them all over, and I paid for them. And I brought John Mack, and I brought him over 6 months before he died.
Man.
I did, and he was supposed to speak he did speak for a young group in Florence. I was his interpreter. I have that video. In fact, I will show that in Laughlin, because was one of his last speeches. And so we'd sit around, and he said to me, and this is what he said, so people need to understand. He said that he felt that the abduction scenario had finished in 1994. He didn't have as many patients, that were complaining about that, but people were being directly downloaded. And he said even some of his colleagues. So he said, what happens is that the visitors or the cosmic cultures will, if you allow them to talk to you, but they will do it through science. They download scientists. They download people that are willing to change the paradigm on this planet. And I know for a fact he wasn't killed, because my mother and I had a hard time keeping him on the street. When he was in Florence, I had to elbow him back up on the sidewalk. He's very, very tall, very distracted. He'd be looking at things, and then all at once, here he was on the street, and I had to push him back on the sidewalk. He was very distracted. So when you're in London, and what's happening is you're on the, they drive on the opposite side of the street. We'd never let him walk around at 10:30 at night. He was alone. I mean, I believe that was an accident.
That's too bad. That's too bad.
And this is from, I'm not guessing this. He was with me for about 3 weeks. So, I mean, I was watching him. And also, he was pickpocketed. He lost his cell phone. Lost his cell phone. I mean, I was so sad. I was, John Rome, you can't go on a metro. You're going to lose your cell phone. And he did. And so sad. And but he was, I'll tell you, of all the people in our field, I loved that man. I loved that man.
I've never heard anything bad about this guy.
Yeah.
The most honest, the most ethical, kindest person. So, I really mean that. He was probably the best of the best. And as far as today, in 2017, of my colleagues that have really stretched into consciousness, because my conference in Laughlin goes from nuts and bolts. I have a lot of nuts and bolts people, but it's also the evolution of consciousness, is Grant Cameron, who is amazing researcher.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, following up kind of what Tony was saying there. Every one of these people are the giants of this industry. You've got a chance to meet Corso, Mac. I mean, you've interviewed the top people in this field, and I think that's amazing. Do you have a piece of evidence? Because often, do you ever run into people that don't believe or understand this? And I'm always faced with that in my real day-to-day life. What is your strongest evidence that you point to tell someone who doesn't believe in any of this alien abduction or UFOs? What do you point to as your most compelling evidence that I could pass along to those people?
Well, I know how you feel. First of all, I know how you feel, and it's not about belief. This is not religion, and it's not done properly. Because the researchers do not get together around a table and share their research. But the only thing I can tell you is a very short story, and that the story is that the Minister of Defense flew me to Canada for his 90th birthday, and he said the same thing. Paula, all these guys, and they were all like in their 80s and 90s, are laughing at me. He said, I want you to have 5 minutes to give a speech, only 5 minutes, and tell them what we're doing. So I took the microphone at a certain point and I said, what is funny about missiles being shut down in 1969 at Maelstrom Air Force Base, when a UFO is on the base, and it's done twice, and these are nuclear missiles with nuclear warheads, and there's no control over them? What is funny about... And I had interviewed Jean-Charles Dubac. He was Air France. He was part of the Disclosure Project that they did in Washington under James Fox and Leslie Kean. I interviewed him personally in Barcelona. I said, what's funny about a pilot of Air France who has 300 people in the back sees a UFO over Paris, the size of a football field, and of course it was over a nuclear installation. People didn't know that. I said, tell me what's funny about that. I said, what's funny about the codes of Russian missiles being activated pointing towards the United States? And I named 2 or 3 real facts, because if people know about the congressional hearings, and I was there, the one that Stephen Bassett did in Washington, D.C., all the testimony were generals. They were generals and military men from Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, Chile, Italy, France, England, and the files in England. I wouldn't talk about contact. Talk about it as a matter of national security. And because these guys were ministers under Paul Halyard, nobody laughed. Nobody laughed. I said, you want to tell me what's funny about that? I said, you think that's funny? I mean, never mind what it is. It's a reality. There's data and you can look at the data. So it's not a joke.
Right.
I don't want to, it's not a joke. It's not a game, and it's not entertainment. It's a study that I wish they did it like they do at the university, because what's happening now, and I'll be honest with you, is everybody's getting everything off internet. So if I ever had a student that gave me a paper and they cited all these internet crazy mythology, I would give them an F.
And before we take a break, I just want to say it's an honor having you on the show, by the way. And we're going to take a break, but when we come back, I want to ask you the question that what you're just saying, that because of now ufology has gone mainstream with Ancient Aliens, Hangar One, and so many other shows. It has become more. It feels more of an entertainment instead of more of a study.
Absolutely.
And so I think now people look at it completely different. And I want to hear your take on that. But then
you're giving a cliffhanger here, Tony. You're going to leave it for the break.
I know.
Right.
But when we come back, I also want to talk about your book, UFOs, All the Above and Beyond. So you're listening to Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet. And we have Captain Ron, and we're interviewing the amazing Paola Harris. And you can go to her website, paolaharris.com. That's Paola Harris.com. So we're going to be right back right after this message from Truth Be Told. Do you suffer from anxiety, from depression, maybe even chronic pain? Well, listen up. Truth Be Told is going to tell you about a breakthrough program built on over 100 years of therapies used in America's returning veterans to help you successfully overcome PTSD, anxiety attacks, pain, and depression. The secret proven in study after study. Music therapy. The effects of music are nothing short of amazing. From strokes to PTSD, music has been shown to improve the quality of life. Now, one of the latest music therapy programs being used in America's veteran hospitals can be yours to experience for free at home and to help your own anxiety attacks, pain, and depression. Or just relax after a hard day. It's called Whole Tones. It takes music therapy to a new level. This revolutionary program makes use of specifically designed frequencies that have been shown to stimulate your body's natural healing power down to a cellular level. If it works for battle-scarred vets, can it work for you? Well, experience it for yourself for free at sweetwholetones.com. Like Tony Sweet, that's SWEET. Go to sweetwholetones.com. Now enjoy the show.
United States Pharmacopoeia, USP, sets the standard for most food supplements and are used in over 95% of all vitamin and mineral supplements in the world. The problem is that these products have never appeared in any living tissue. They're created in laboratories and are not recognizable to the body's metabolism. Grown by Nature products are different because they use renatured ingredients, proprietary blends of essential vitamins and minerals, with cofactors of proteins, lipids, and complex carbohydrates. Over 50 studies have been conducted on renatured nutrients, and over 20 have been published in peer-reviewed journals proclaiming their superiority. As a result, Grown by Nature vitamins and supplements are now recognized as simply the best available. Call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829 and order your Grown by Nature products today. We are what we eat, and since we are of nature, we should eat foods in their natural form. Only Grown by Nature offers a full line of renatured nutrients. Call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829, because not all products are grown by nature, but they should be.
All right, we're back. This is Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet. I have Captain Ron here with me. For you guys that's just tuning in, please welcome to the show, Paola Harris. Please go to her website, paolaharris.com. Check out her books. You can go to Amazon. I'm sure you can pick them out on any bookstore that you probably can go to. But Paola, thank you so much for being here. When we left for the break, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on how because 70s, 80s, even 90s ufology was really more of a study, and people was kind of interested in it. But when the Hollywood grabbed a hold of it and made it more of an entertainment.
Right, my mom knows what it is now.
Yeah,
where she
subject.
wouldn't have. Yeah.
So what is your take on how Hollywood has taken it and thrust it out to the public?
Well, it's become normal for the kids. See, because I'm convinced that I'm a certain age, that my generation is a skeptical generation, and then if you really digest this material that we're being visited, and of course, if you look at the Maelstrom Air Force Base shutdown of the missiles, and those were UFOs, and in the Rendlesham, there's so much. The Rendlesham-Forrest case, I've talked to Peniston and Burroughs and everything. That's all real. So if you start, digesting this, it changes your life. I mean, I truly believe, gentlemen, that these beings are not on vacation. They didn't go to the Caribbean. They didn't go to planet Earth because they're on vacation. They're kind of cosmic anthropologists. They're seeing at what level of evolution we are. And oh my God, if they're looking at us right now, I don't know what they're thinking. But I think that there are cosmic cultures all over the universe, and I'm going to call them cultures out of respect, because a lot of these are people. They're regular people, and I learned that from my Latin American work. And of course, I mean, my background is so vast because I'm the one that brought Monsignor Balducci from the Vatican to the X conference. So he was a friend of mine. He lived up the street. So I knew all about how major institutions like the Vatican were placing themselves in a situation where, if the ETs went over every major airport or there were major sightings, they could say something. They could get out of it. They could defend themselves. They could say, we knew about it all the time. So here's Father Funes in 2009 saying something like, yes, there are brothers and sisters. He didn't say they're little gray things running around. They said they are our brothers and sisters. And proceeded to talk about them as if they were people. So, I'm looking at all the ramifications of contact. And, watching this on TV, there's one level, and Ancient Aliens, what that does, that show, and I knew Georgios Tsoukalos before he was Georgios Tsoukalos on TV, is talking about a book that changed my life, and that's Eric Van Donigen's Chariot of the Gods.
Right.
Which, and I don't know if you guys read it.
Of course.
Yeah, and I've had Eric on my show last year. Amazing.
Yeah, well, does it make sense that they wouldn't be just coming around at Roswell time?
Right.
Does it make sense that they basically are looking at this planet? Some people have even been involved in this planet. And what it did is connect dots, because if you look at I don't think everything is alien generated.
Right.
I don't think everything is.
I'm the same way.
But it does give you a context to study this from, and that's what's lacking in the field. I mean, this field is where everybody's on his own. They all come out with stuff, that nobody else can verify, and it's very, very difficult. It isn't like there's a universe. I do teach classes online from Michael Sala's Exopolitics Institute. I do teach 3 classes online because I'm a teacher. I have a master's in education. So, I kind of help people look at where it all happened, who the witnesses are, like the Colonel Corso and other people. There's so many that we call whistleblowers that have come out of the woodwork that want to tell the world, and there's so many that can't, because they're afraid that it'll turn everything upside down. Some of the people that you've met that don't want to believe it, they don't, because it would turn their world upside down. And my own daughter said to me, Mom, what does this have to do with me? I have to go to work and I have to make money.
I hear that too.
Talk about it.
How's it affect me? Let me ask you this, Paul. The what you're talking about here, you've got all these different guys you're talking about. You said that nobody reads each other's books, and I'm sure that's true. Another problem I have is that you're mentioning all these different people. They don't have the same viewpoint or story. You have Dr. Jacobs says one thing, and I think he's among the very best. And then there's people that we've mentioned have a different view, and then Corso has a different view, and then John Mack has a different view. It's not like everybody in this field has the exact same scenario. There are different looking beings. There are different experiences. There are different... People think it's dimensional. People think it's otherworldly. We had a guy on here a couple weeks ago who's the FBI guy, and he said the data shows him it's another dimension. It's not within our universe. So it's not like there's this concrete answer that everybody in this world, in this universe, in this field is talking about. There's all these opposing factions. How do you separate that out, or how do you know which one is right, or
There is no right. How can you figure this out?
You can't. That's the problem. That's why skeptics.
It's unfigurable. But I will honestly say, some of the people you mentioned have never read anybody else's book or looked at anybody else's research.
Right.
They come to one conclusion, and they come to one conclusion because that's the box they have to put it in. It's like one of the problems is if you have a preconceived notion of evil or good, you're going to put it in that box. I mean, you can't. They're trying to put it in a box. This is a phenomenon that has no box. It is so weird. It is so unbelievable. And I didn't talk about this, but if somebody said, what did you find in common with a lot of your stories? It's time travel.
Yeah.
People think that too, yeah.
In common with all of it.
That's another one.
A problem with time. I call it a problem with time because I can't give you a good answer. And I remember people asking me, is it interplanetary? Is it interdimensional? Is it paranormal? And my answer, and that's why the book is called All the Above. It's
right.
all the
Very
above.
good.
I mean, if you're doing like a test and you have A, B, C, or all the above, you check off the all the above because it is all the above. And I remember Alan Hynek saying to me, and he's people question my working with Hynek. It's been so hard for me because I'm a woman, and I've been discarded by the old boys club,
right?
Which is all of those guys you mentioned, you know. And I say, but I worked with Alan, and one of the things he said to me was, Paola, in those days I was very naive. He said, Paola, make sure you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
He said, there's a lot of paranormal phenomenon with this. But I'll tell you why I didn't want to touch contact like I'm doing it now. In my book, they'll find all kinds of contact stuff. I didn't want to do it because I couldn't handle it. My data bank couldn't handle it, and I was fearful. So anytime he'd go to the paranormal, I would shut down. Really? And in 30 years, I've had to change my mind. So if you ask me who I admire, is any of my researchers that have changed their mind. And one of them is Colin Andrews.
That is awesome.
And
wasn't Hynek also? Isn't he? He was
right.
sort of skeptical. They used him to debunk this stuff, right? Isn't he the swamp gas guy? Isn't that his claim?
No, that was Alan.
Yeah.
Colin Andrews is a crop circle. Yeah, well, it wasn't that he was skeptical. He was paid to do that.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, he was the spokesman to be against this, and then he was a believer.
Wow.
Yeah, but, here he was. See, now, this is it. He was working at Wesleyan. The Air Force said, we get out there and just debunk everything, and he had 5 kids. A lot of people, I'm sorry, have been subsidized and do the same thing. They're paid to say something. And so he did it until he couldn't do it anymore, because he told me, he said, Paula, he says, I tried to stay with the party line, he said, but then I had all these cases that didn't fit into any box. Here we go, box. And he said, so I decided to leave the Air Force, and I went on my own. He said, and all the researchers came after me, and they never forgave me for the swamp gas stuff.
Right.
And, Alan Hynek was one of the most spiritual people. He would meditate. I don't know if people know that. He would meditate. He was a sweetheart man. He changed his mind so many times because he had a very open mind. And his friend was Jacques Vallée. You know that they were very close. And so you have the intellect of Jacques Vallée with the passion of Alan, and I'm watching this. At that time, I didn't want to talk about, as I said, I couldn't handle contact. So let me go to where I am now. The new book is called All the Above because it's all the interviews of all the military guys and all the intelligence people and everybody that, a lot of time travel in there, a lot of time travel. I did the Charles Hall case. I don't know if people know that, but I was the one to take Charles Hall to Indian Springs and do all of that because that was a case of human, beings that were guests on the Indian Springs facility with their children. That blew me out of the water that we would do that. But anyway, I went from there to Latin America to Sisto Paz Wells, and in the 70s he would go out in Peru with a group of people, and this is a lot of work. They would fast and camp for 7 days, and the ship would land, and men came off. And all the people that started doing that in the 70s, a lot of them went on their own, like Ricardo Gonzalez from Peru, who now lives in Argentina. And Ricardo is currently still having contact. And I was in Chile with him in September, where he had contact. He disappeared into the sand dunes for an hour and came back, and the message was mainly, and a lot of the messages from Latin America, this is for your listeners, is problems with our climate. That there was going to be a war on water, that we were going to have all kinds of climate, serious earthquakes, climate change situations. And, and I'm looking at Standing Rock, I'm looking at all kinds of, fights over water, oil, and everything, and those beings, as I said before, are not on vacation. These people that he meets, it's in the back of my book, it'll take too long to explain, are saying, look, we're giving you a heads up. You can handle it.
Wow.
But we're giving you a heads up of what's coming down the road. And it isn't abductions. So we're still there. As long as we're still there, we're not looking at anything else that's going on in the world. That's why the Laughlin Conference, I have people from Latin America come up. I will have Sisto Paz Wells himself up there, but the problem is, people don't want to do that because they have to get an interpreter, and he speaks only Spanish. Ricardo speaks only Spanish. Jaime Maussan will be there, because he has the most incredible film footage of anybody. And
yes, he does.
His films of the UFOs, the ones he showed last year, were over Syria.
Why?
So
I wonder why.
I
wonder why.
Why? Why would they go to Syria? Are they on vacation?
Don't you think they're probably just kind of watching out, make sure nothing's going to happen?
Or someone might say that's us.
Right. Well, before we get out of here, because we have about 5 minutes left, and like I said, this hour had flown by. But
some of it is us as far as back engineering, but I don't think we go to Syria. But anyway, some of it could be us. Yeah.
And, I have a question. I remember one time we had somebody on. I can't remember who it was, but we were talking about Bigfoot. And do you think? Because I know you get into the paranormal stuff too, but do you believe that Bigfoot might be part of an alien race? Because they're always never know to ever find some.
Well, I just did. Okay, it's too long to go into. We don't have time. But 5 years I've been working on a case in San Antonio, New Mexico. Mm-hmm. Of a crash that happened in 1945. In fact, I had Jan Harza with me, the head of MUFON, because he questioned there were two little boys. They saw the crash. They saw the beings. And the little boy, the 9-year-old, who is now 70 years old, as we're driving around the hills, he goes, well, I saw this monkey. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I was riding my horse, and I'll show you where I saw him. This big monkey, he jumped over a fence. He called him a monkey. And he said he was so fast, he just glided over that fence. I said, Jose, you know what you're talking about. You're talking about a Bigfoot, right? And he goes, yeah. He said, my horse, he said, I tried to get him to go as fast as the monkey, but the monkey was faster than the horse, and the horse reacted. So, and this was in a canyon in San Antonio, New Mexico. So I go, oh, my God, there must be a porthole, and what comes out of the porthole is everything. And not just everything that can come out of a dimensional portal. So the time travel element, the porthole element, all that is so complex, so you cannot put it in a sentence. You have to read. And as a teacher, please, I've got about 300 books. The last one, I buy everything that comes out. The only way to put this together, and there is no answer. There is no box.
Right.
There is no box. If you want to figure out a few things, try to read everything and see what makes sense to you. That's my advice.
Well,
good advice.
You're one of those people that makes sense to me, and I'm sure Captain Ron.
Absolutely.
And I know the book is probably doing very well because people love you and people love your research. It's called UFOs, All the Above and Beyond. In this book, why did you want to follow up? Was it just because you had so many interviews and research that you had left over, or was it
that I didn't want to go to contact. I'm not calling. I didn't want to go. In other words, I had to. If you read the last part of my book, All the Above and Beyond, you'll realize that when I went to Latin America, I was involved with contact myself.
Oh.
So, it's when I went to that part, the contact part, and by the way, it was very traumatic. I mean, contact with other beings that are nothing like you, and these people in South America were 10 feet tall.
You saw that firsthand yourself.
Difficult. Yes, but it wasn't, the first time was in Shasta, so you need to read the book. I even have a drawing of how this guy looked. So, and it was so traumatic for me. I don't talk about it very much because it's very private, but it shattered my whole entire paradigm. And so I felt that I needed to tell the truth and to try to steer people into the fact that if we have visitations, they're not on vacation. They're here to try to walk us along an evolutionary path. And if people want to know more about that, then come and talk to the people at the Laughlin Conference, November 10th through 12th. In Laughlin, Nevada. It's my company, Starworks USA, because I'm trying to switch it over out of entertainment and more into study, more into dialogue, more into everybody hanging out with everybody. My guests all attend each other's lectures.
That's great.
They all sit in the front row. Nobody leaves.
That's
Nobody
great.
goes out there and hangs around with their fans. They're all in the front row. They all love each other because it's all new stuff. And they're going, oh, my God, this is coming from... and by the way, it's 8 women and 8 men. The idea that Linda Howe and I are like some of the only women is ridiculous. I mean, I brought in Essen from Turkey. I brought in Karen Ogg from Australia. I brought So from South America. I brought people from all over, women from all over the world. So it has to be balanced. It's got 8 men and 8 women, and there's the panels are wonderful. They're intellectual discussions, which are great. And this year we have George Neary of Coast to Coast, who will
Awesome.
question Clifford Stone about crash retrieval on the stage.
That's fantastic.
So if you guys want to come, I'll give you a press pass and love to.
We are there.
We're there.
Now, Tony's going to spend a lot of time on the slot machines, but I will be there at those things. You heard it. We have this recorded, so we got a press pass.
It'll be a UFO slot machine.
Done.
That's okay.
Yeah, you were funny.
We
Well,
would love to
thank you
come.
for the
Honest to God, that sounds
invitation.
fantastic. I was reading all about your event, and it sounds fantastic. It's got a similar name. You know, our show's called Truth Be Told, and this is called Time for Truth. So I think
Well,
it's
this
time
year
the
it's
truth be
time-
told beyond Time for Truth.
Well, this year and by the way, the color is red, so the cocktail party everybody dresses in the same color. But it is this year is living the Vita Loca, or living the crazy life. Last year it was music and art, and we had art and music all over.
That's awesome.
It was incredible. We had all the music that was around UFOs. It was incredible. There's a theme every year. So yeah, and thank you so much for your invitation to speak, and hope I meet you.
Thanks for your invitation.
Yeah,
We're going to have a ball there.
And we like I said, we're honored to have you on the show. Your invitation's always open to have you back anytime, and please come back. Please come back.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And please go and check out all her books on Amazon. Go to her website, paolaharris.com. And like I said, support this community, because these people have dedicated their life and their energy, their research to enlighten the world. And so hopefully you guys will help and by going to this conference next
Agreed.
November. All right. Thank you so much, Paola Harris. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
All
All
right.
right. What do you think, Ron?
I think it's great. I think she's got so many heavy hitters that she got to talk to personally. It's fantastic.
Yeah, when you were reading me some of that, I was like, oh my God. So, you guys, you can't go anywhere. We have a lot more to talk about. We are going to take just a quick break.
She mentioned Eisenhower in her
Right.
thing.
And
What a coincidence, Tony.
What a coincidence. We have the great-granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Laura Eisenhower is going to be coming on next hour. So A lot of talk about there. So
Absolutely.
don't go anywhere. This is Truth Be Told. Please check out our website, truthbetoldwebtv.com. Check out our YouTube channel. Just type in Truth Be Told and subscribe, leave a comment, watch us or listen to us, I guess, on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, all those places. So until next time, we'll see you then. Have a good time on Truth Be Told.